The surface of Aridis 3 was not merely a desert, it was an oven with the door welded shut. The temperature at high noon hovered at a steady 150 degrees Fahrenheit. The air was not something you breathed, it was something you endured. It was a world of bleached bone, shimmering heat mirages, and the relentless, hateful pressure of the twin suns. The Valtos hegemony thought they were the masters of this environment. Evolving in the volcanic vents of their home world, the Valtos were cold-blooded reptilians who thrived in high temperatures. But even they had a limit. Their biological threshold ended at 110 degrees. To compensate, they built the most advanced cooling technology in the galaxy. Their warriors moved in sleek, vacuum-sealed suits filled with pressurized liquid nitrogen loops. To a Valtos, war was a clinical experience, conducted from inside a personal air-conditioned bubble. They viewed the human colonists of Aridis 3 as soft, moist mammals who would dry up and blow away the moment the cooling units were sabotaged. During the siege of the Sunspire, the Valtos executed what they thought was a brilliant tactical strike. They detonated a high-altitude EMP, frying the power grid of the human settlement and, more importantly, the industrial cooling fans of the human bunkers. They waited for the humans to crawl out of their holes, gasping for air, ready to surrender for a sip of refrigerated water. High Inquisitor Srak looked through his thermal-dampened visor at the human perimeter. The heat was so intense it was warping the very air into liquid waves. "The mammals have 30 minutes, Srak signaled to his legion. "Their internal organs will begin to cook. Their blood will thicken into sludge. When they emerge, do not fire. Watch them wither. It is the most efficient form of conquest." But Srak didn't understand the golden secret of human biology. He didn't know that humans are the only species in the quadrant that carries its own personal high-performance radiator inside its skin. Inside the human barracks, Captain Miller felt the fans die. The silence was immediate and terrifying. Within minutes, the temperature inside the metal walls began to climb. 110. 120. The air became a physical weight. "All right, listen up," Miller roared, his voice already sounding wet in the heavy air. "The lizards think they've got us in a slow cooker. They're sitting out there in their fancy fridges, waiting for us to turn into jerky. But they forgot one thing about the Great Rift Valley back home. We are the kings of the long, hot walk." The humans didn't put on more armor. They didn't scramble for portable cooling units that would only last an hour. Instead, they did something that looked like madness to the watching Valtos. They stripped. They shed their heavy tactical vests. They threw aside their thick ceramic plates. They stepped out into the blinding, white-hot sun of Aridis 3 wearing nothing but light cargo pants and their boots. Their skin was already flushed red, and a fine shimmering film was beginning to form over every square inch of their bodies. This is the sweat shield. While the rest of the galaxy relies on external technology or massive, water-heavy tongues to cool down, humans possess millions of eccrine sweat glands. We are the only apex predators that use the physics of evaporation to turn the surrounding heat into a cooling mechanism. As the sweat evaporates off our skin, it carries away the thermal energy of the body, allowing a human to maintain a stable internal temperature even when the world around them is a furnace. Miller led his squad out into the dunes. To the Valtos they looked like primitives. To the planet they looked like a miracle. The humans were wet. The shimmering film of moisture on their skin was a biological defense more effective than any liquid nitrogen loop. As long as they had water to drink and air to move over their skin, they were effectively immune to the heat stroke that was about to kill their enemies. "Charge!" Miller yelled, his lungs taking in the searing air. The moisture in his throat kept the heat from burning his windpipe. He began to run. High Inquisitor Srak watched in total disbelief. "They're running? In this heat? It is impossible. Their hearts should be stopping. Their brains should be liquefying." But the humans weren't stopping. They were accelerating. They moved with a fluid, glistening grace, the sweat pouring off them and instantly evaporating, creating a localized cool zone right against their skin. They hit the Valtos perimeter like a tidal wave of hot meat. The battle was a massacre of technology versus biology. The Valtos, trapped in their bulky, heavy cooling suits, found themselves struggling to move. The extreme heat of the planet was working against their machinery. The liquid nitrogen loops were overpressurizing, the compressors screaming as they tried to fight the 150-degree ambient temperature. Every time a human slammed into a Valtos warrior, the thermal shock was catastrophic. The humans were radiating heat, but their skin was cool to the touch, while the Valtos armor was becoming a pressurized bomb. "My suit is failing," a Valtos guard shrieked over the comms. "The heat, it is piercing the seals." The humans, They are touching the armor and it is cracking. Miller grabbed a Valtos soldier by the helmet. The alien's visor was fogged with internal condensation as the cooling system gave out. Miller's grip was slick with sweat, but he used the moisture as a lubricant to slide his knife into the neck seal. The alien collapsed, not from the wound, but from the sudden, massive influx of heat that his cold-blooded body couldn't process. The humans were now 3 miles into the desert, chasing the retreating Valtos. The aliens were dying without a shot being fired. Their suits were shutting down to prevent a total core meltdown, leaving the reptilians trapped in metal coffins that were rapidly reaching 140 degrees. They were gasping, their movements becoming slow and sluggish as their cold-blooded metabolism failed in the extreme heat. Miller didn't stop. He pushed his squad harder. They were drinking from gallon-sized bladders on their backs, constantly replenishing the water they were dumping out through their pores. They were a biological machine that converted water into endurance. "Look at them," Miller shouted, pointing at the struggling Valtos. "They're cooking in their own cans. Keep moving. Don't let them breathe." Srax's command vehicle, a massive hover tank with a dedicated cooling array, was the only thing still moving. He tried to fire the main cannon, but the sensors were so warped by the heat haze coming off the sand that he couldn't get a lock. The humans were just blurred shapes of glistening skin, moving too fast for the sluggish alien computers to track. Miller reached the tank. He climbed onto the hull, the metal so hot it would have blistered any other creature. But his hands were wet. The layer of sweat created a temporary, microscopic barrier of steam, the Leidenfrost effect, protecting his palms just long enough for him to plant a thermite charge on the cooling intake. The charge blew. The tank's cooling system erupted in a cloud of blue gas. Srax screamed as the temperature inside the cabin spiked to 160 degrees in seconds. He scrambled for the hatch, bursting out into the desert air, gasping for life. He looked up and saw Miller. The human was standing over him, his chest heaving, his skin covered in a mixture of dust and moisture. Miller looked like he had just emerged from a river. He looked vibrant, alive and terrifyingly energetic. How are you not dead?" Srax rasped, his scales peeling in the dry heat. Miller wiped a handful of sweat from his forehead and flicked it onto the burning sand. "Because we don't need a machine to keep us cool, lizard. We've been running down our dinner since the Stone Age. You think this is hot? This is just a summer day in Texas." The siege of the Sunspire ended with the total surrender of the Valtos hegemony. They had lost an entire legion to a planet they thought they owned, defeated by a species that used its own weakness, the need for water, as its greatest tactical strength. The Galactic Council's new entry on human thermoregulation was classified as a top-tier biological hazard. Advisory: do not attempt to engage humans in high-temperature environments. While other species rely on technology or behavioral cooling, humans possess a redundant, high-capacity evaporative cooling system integrated into their largest organ, the skin. In extreme heat, they do not become sluggish. They become more dangerous as their metabolism is fueled by an unlimited cooling capacity. They are the only species that can outrun a machine in a desert. The sun is out, the humans win. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Stay hydrated. If you enjoyed this victory of human biology over alien technology, hit that like button. Comment below. What is the hottest temperature you have ever survived and how much water did you drink? Subscribe for the next front of the Apex Factor, the Pattern Seeker. The sun is high. The desert is ours.